Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Village of Gurnee Planning and Zoning Board for this Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023. Joanne, could we have roll call, please?
Present. Present. Here. Here. Here.
Present. We do have a quorum. If everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it
stands one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from our meeting that was held back on June 21st. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or changes? If not, a motion to approve as submitted would be in order.
So moved.
Mr. Campbell?
Second.
Second by Mr. Paff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And at this time, the floor will recognize that Ms. Ware has joined the meeting. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the meeting that was held back on July 19th. Any questions or comments? Move to approve. Moved by Mr. Nordentoff.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pasak. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a special use request for property located at 3860 Grandview. Tracy, I assume?
Yep. Mr. Albert Ruby is requesting a special use permit to allow the establishment and operation of a vehicle dealership with outdoor storage and display on property located at 3860 Grandview Avenue. The subject property consists of approximately 0.6 acres and is zoned I-1 restricted industrial. It is surrounded by I-1 zone property and uses including a plumbing business, vehicle tow lot, landscape business, multi-tenant industrial building, including a tire and auto repair shop, and Skokie Highway. A vehicle dealership with outdoor storage and display requires a special use permit in the I-1 district. The applicant is here to walk you through his plans.
Thank you. At this, can I conduct the meeting for a second here first?
We have a couple of pictures that might help you understand better.
At this time, I'll turn the floor over to the petitioner, but at first I would request that anyone from the petitioner or members of the general audience who intend to give testimony or ask questions to please stand and be sworn in by the village attorney.
So if the petitioners and come to, raise your right hand. And anybody else that might have any questions?
Yeah.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll turn the floor over to the petitioner, and if you could please state your name and address for the record and proceed with your presentation, please.
My name is John Dax. I'm an attorney. I represent Mr. Alberto Ruby, who is the applicant for the special use permit. And this is Mr. Ruby, of course.
My name is Alberto Ruby, and
Mr. Ruby, could you get closer to the microphone, please? I can hear you, but we record the meetings.
Okay.
And
yes, my name is Alberto Ruby, and I'm the one applied for the used car dealer permit.
Okay. Mr. Ruby has applied for a permit, special use permit, to operate a outdoor motor vehicle sales facility with 8 automobiles. The location would be 3860 Grandview in Gurnee. He is the contract purchaser of the property. The owner of the property is an Illinois corporation by the name of VAL, V-A-L, Inc. VAL, Inc.'s principal officer has signed the application for special use, authorizing him to proceed with this application. As Tracy said, the entire area around this property is zoned I-1. It's on a dead-end street. The end of the street is the Sioux Line tracks, and just beyond that to the west is Route 41. It is about 0.6 of an acre, and it has a building on the property that is roughly 4,000 square feet. The building houses an auto repair business, which is done exclusively inside the building. So when an individual applies for a special use permit, your Gurnee ordinances specify that the application is to be evaluated based upon the evidence presented here, and I trust that the application itself can be considered part of that evidence, and the standards set forth in your own ordinance in section or Article 16. The ordinance specifies 4 standards that have to be addressed in the application, and they are set forth in the application. We've answered them in writing. However, I'd like to say a few words about them. So the first says that if you grant this, will the establishment or maintenance of the outdoor motor vehicle retail facility, will it endanger public health, safety, or the welfare of the people in the general vicinity? And I would say very simply, it will not. Number one of the ways it might, or a business might, is through some sort of pollution. There'll be no pollution, there'll be no noise, no light, no chemical usage, none of that whatsoever. You'll simply have 8 motor vehicles parked neatly off-street in designated spots for sale to people who may be interested in purchasing them. The property itself, as I said, is in an I-1 district, and Tracy mentioned the various businesses. You have a landscaping, I apologize, I thought I turned it off. You have a landscaping business, a U-Haul storage business, a flower development type business, and to the north of the property, you have an auto repair shop, similar to the one that he's operating. Or no, that's to the east of the business. To the north of the business is the storage yard for a towing company. There, at the boundary of this property, there is a 10-foot fence, solid, that completely isolates this property from that property. And of course, to the west, you have I-41, and there is certainly nothing there that would be disturbed by the presence of the business. I'll add that the business will be located on a dead-end street, and thus you're not going to have a lot of traffic running back and forth or through the neighborhood to get to them. It's a simple, short half-block trip off of Grand Avenue and then slightly west on Grandview. So in general, there's no harm to anybody. The nature and character of the businesses in the area are similar. There is no pollution per se. And in fact, some of his neighbors have come to him and talked to him about the posting that you folks did and said he has their approval. So all in all, I don't think there's any harm to the welfare of the people in the community there. Your second standard asks if the use is compatible with the general land use of adjacent properties. Again, it's I-1. Light industry or restricted industry. The other businesses are similar in nature. You have the U-Haul facility, that's vehicles. You have the towing storage yard, which is vehicles. Again, Route 41 to the west, so there's nothing there that's going to be bothered. All in all, I don't think that there is any kind of lack of compatibility of this business with what's there. Furthermore, he operates an auto repair business with a license out of the same property, all indoor, of course, and the next door building has an auto repair business in it as well, compatible with the dealership. I'll go on to say that I-1 allows a lot of different kinds of businesses. They allow heavy rental. This is your own ordinance. Retail, service, vehicle dealerships, indoor, are zoned I-1. Animal care facilities, self-storage facilities, vehicle rental facilities, all of these are really kind of similar in nature, particularly the indoor dealerships and the vehicle rental facilities. The same sort of traffic, the same sort of motor vehicle presence that you would have with his dealership. The entire dealership will be off-street. None of the vehicles will be parked on a public street. None of the customer parking is on the public street. It is all off-street, all on his property. The last standard set by your ordinance is that it is compatible with other regulations. The conduct that he proposes will be in line with other regulations you have in your zoning ordinance. The only one I could find that really was on point was Article 8, Section 29, which deals with the requirements for a automobile dealership. It states that all repairs and servicing shall be done in an enclosed building. They are. It's not really part of the retail sales end of it, but the repair work that is done there is done indoors completely, not out on the lot. You require that any fueling facility be at the rear of the lot. There will be no fueling facility, so it's not an issue. The outdoor displays are limited based upon where the vehicles are, and fundamentally, you are not allowed large displays and like that. He will have cards or sheets in the office that'll give pricing. There'll be no advertising placed on the motor vehicles themselves. There'll be no open hoods. It's one of the restrictions specified. There'll be no wrecked or unlicensed vehicles there for sale. Everything offered for sale will be operable and licensed. No attention getters, no balloons, no streamers, none of that will be used whatsoever. The hours that he proposes are 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, 9 to 3 Saturday, and of course closed on Sunday. This is in line with the other businesses that are in the area. They operate basically on the same time frames. We received a letter from your planning department addressing some of the things that they saw in our initial application. One was the presence of a dumpster, and there was a statement that the dumpster must be placed in a fenced compound, if you will. The dumpster that was there has been moved to the north side of the building. There's an entirely fenced area. It's in that fenced area. It is not accessible to the public whatsoever. There was a dead pine tree still in its ball. That's been removed and disposed of. He was asked to plant two minimum 3-inch diameter trees at the corner of the lot. Those have been planted. They're in the pictures in the packet you were given, not the ones I gave you just now, but rather appended to the application. So he's complied with the requests of the village on those points. I think the business is good for the community, certainly will, to a minor degree, increase the sales tax base and attract business to the area. And I ask that you approve it and recommend that he be granted his special use permit.
Thank you. I have one question. Can you describe what the test drive route will be?
I didn't hear
Yes.
that.
Test drive?
If you can get closer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can take it to the Grandview and take like Grand Avenue to 41, just a couple miles. We can drive far, you know, with the license plates, dealer license plates.
Okay,
So we can get that road so we don't bother like the neighbors, you know, the small streets.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can go like busy streets.
Okay,
If you
great.
come out on Grand Avenue,
Sir, you need to get closer to the microphone.
41.
Sir, you need to get closer to the microphone.
The entrance to northbound 41 is just a block or so to the west.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted a commitment that we weren't going to be doing any test drives in the neighborhood.
There are 5 customer parking spots, 3 of them right by the vehicles, 2 further to the back. There's 2 employee parking spots, There are 2 handicap spots which comply with your 16-foot width requirements under the ordinance, and they are located approximately to the doors, the one on the, I always get this one, east side of the building and the south side of the building, right up next to the door. No curbs, no lips, no nothing that is an obstruction to a handicapped person in terms of moving about or getting into the building.
Okay.
It's been paved brand new. He spent well in excess of $20,000. I'm sure you can see from the pictures, brand new throughout, just as requested.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Yeah, just, it's referenced, pardon me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just referenced several times in the application that it's limited to 8 vehicles. You're a businessman, you're in business to do business, you get a great deal, all of a sudden you have 16 vehicles. You're gonna turn the 8 vehicles that are great deals away, or how are you gonna facilitate the other 8 vehicles that you have?
Our plan is like have like 8 cars, you know, and no more than 8 cars. Even we get busy, we're not planning to get more cars, you know. I mean, if we're busy, we can get another shop later on, you know, if that's the case. But right now, no, just like 8 cars, no more than 8 cars.
Okay. And it's probably difficult just for me to see, and I was out there. Great job with the paving. I know that we had some concerns with the striping, which we can address later on.
Oh, thank you.
But is your lot, in the appendix here, there's the picture, it's the second to the last page, and it's the picture in the middle. And in the middle, there are cones right along. That would be the east side of the driveway there. Is that the end of your lot?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and those cones are like the other property to the neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the 3816. Yeah, that one.
Okay,
And
understood.
they leave those cones, yes.
Okay.
So actually, the new paving, that's the, you know, our property.
So
The
all
new
of the
one.
paving that I saw,
Yes.
that's your lot line?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And then I know there was also a note about the second handicap spot. Is that for a specific purpose that you have the second handicap spot?
Well,
To the west, I'm sorry, to the east side of the
to the
building, going
east,
to the
yeah.
north?
I mean, yes, we're gonna use the one close to the shop, which is north side.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the door we use for auto repairs too.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna have the office there. Yeah, so we put the extra one just in case, that's all. Yeah.
There is another entrance into the building
From the south
on
side?
that side.
Yeah.
And he felt it appropriate to put a spot there so that they could enter that way if they chose to.
Understood. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Dave?
Thank you. I have a few questions. Could you give us some detail as to what the plan is for the use for the fenced-in area on the north side of the building? Because it really didn't seem to be addressed directly within our packet as to what that space is going to be utilized for. I saw that there were 2 vehicles that were already in there.
Yes, so we got those vehicles like storage right now. I mean, they running and everything, but we just park it there because we're not running our business right now, like selling cars. But we get it prepared to, when we have the permit, to prepare those cars and put it for sale. So we don't want to use the neighbors, which is the 3816, the one we're running right now, and that's why we park it there. But our plan is like not storage cars there, you know. Right now, we just park it there.
Are repairs being performed in that building currently? That is an active repair shop?
Yes, it is.
And that will continue to be a repair shop in addition to servicing new car sales?
Yes, yes.
So,
His repair shop.
I understand, thank you. So, where are the cars kept that are in the process of being repaired during the repair process? Are they stored inside or are they stored outside?
I mean, inside, you know, some inside. I can have, you know, like a lot of cars inside because we have 3 lifts already. the ones we work in, repair the cars. So I was thinking just have probably like 2 or 3 cars in that storage, in the fence, the one you're talking about, and just to prepare, the process to, if we're waiting for some parts, but it's not gonna for so long, a couple days probably, or maybe a week sometimes.
Are they stored outside in any of the extra spaces that are newly striped areas?
I can, yeah. I can put it in the parking lot, yes.
And is that also, that area adjacent in the gravel area is accessed for you as well to use?
Yes,
Or-
yeah, yes, because, yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
no sales done out of the side on the.
No,
right?
no. And actually, we're running our business to 3816, which is the old building, the gravel, the one you say.
To the east.
Yeah, so we using that one to repair cars. We had 3 lifts there, and so we do like body work to repair it. And then we got the extra 3 lifts to the new building, which is 3860.
Okay, one last question is related to signage. Is anything intended to change or be added from either building signage or signage at the edge of the property, at the entrance, that's going to change?
No, it's not gonna change. No, probably, later I can check with the village to see what's this, to put a new sign, but it's gonna be the same name and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, Mr. Norm, you just answered and asked all of my questions. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, just a quick clarification. So you're running the business out of both locations?
Yes,
The one that we're discussing now, that's going to be also double as a sales, and then the one immediately to your east, you're also operating your business out of that location as well?
yes. So 3816, we started like 2014. We started, auto repairs. So now we had the opportunity to buy that property under contract. And then, 3816, I'm sorry. And that's why we try, do like auto repair and auto sales. But like I say, 8 cars, no more. That's our goal. Yeah,
Understood, thank you.
thank you.
Excuse me, at this time, I'll open the floor to the public. If there's anyone from the members of the general public that would like to ask a question, now would be the time. Okay, I'll close the floor to the public. One question for staff. Did we receive any feedback at all from residents within the 500-foot areas or whatever?
No, we did not.
Okay. All right. Any additional discussion?
I'm sorry, Chair, were you addressing the parking, the striping of the?
We can do that now, sure.
And staff had recommended a modification to the striping of the parking lot to a 90-degree striping. Is that something that you're understanding that we would be?
We're willing to do that. We talked to Tracy about that a bit. Frankly, I tried to pull my truck in there and I was able to do it, but it wasn't altogether easy. And I do agree with you. Perpendicular parking will certainly facilitate traffic flow.
Yes, yeah.
And he will do that.
Yeah, I couldn't see how I could pull in there when I drove into the lot.
But it's not a problem. We can do those changes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. If not, then this would be the time to make a recommendation to the village board.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
We discussed the removal of the second handicap parking stall, but is that something that we want to do? Or I heard his rationale for it. I don't know if that's something that we have to recommend.
Personally, I don't know that we need to incorporate it into a motion. I mean, it's pretty clear they understand that they need one. And if at some point in time on their own, they want to take one out, I think that's fine, but I don't know that we necessarily want to recommend that they be compelled to do it.
The only concern that staff had is that the location of it kind of blocks the entry to some of the stalls to the north, but they are putting their employee parking up there, so if they feel that they can work it with employee parking, and at any point if that handicapped stall is occupied, then those 2 stalls might be blocked in temporarily.
I mean, but I still think I'd leave it up to their discretion to run the business.
Parking spaces required?
They only need 1, so they have 2.
No, I mean, if they block those 2 spots?
Yes, they would still meet, right.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay. Not a motion to be heard? Jane, go ahead.
A motion for favorable, motion to forward a favorable recommendation on the petition of Albert Ruby for a special use permit to allow the establishment and operation of a vehicle dealership with outdoor storage and display on property located at 3860 Grandview Avenue, subject to restriping the lot south of the building to 90 degrees head-end stalls.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Norton Toff. Any discussion? Joanne, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. As you know, we are a recommending body to the village board. Staff will keep you posted in terms of when the village board will take up the matter, and
They'll have a hearing similar to this, am I correct?
it'll be more streamlined.
Yeah, hearing is done, it'll just be an item, and you can check the staff when that date. Typically, the petitioner does that meeting just in case. Just might have a question for you, but it will be presented as a.
Do you want us to change the striping now? Before the village board?
No? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
very much for your
Thank you.
time. Yeah, want that. Sorry about that.
We'll talk.
Take care.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is an informal hearing, an informal review, I should say. It's not a hearing. A request by SunCloud Health. They're considering adding a location at 5631 Manchester. As I've said before, this is one of my favorite parts of the ordinance. It's an opportunity for someone to just kind of brainstorm with us, and no commitments are being made on one side or the other. There'll be no motions taken or made, I should say, this evening. But it's just a great opportunity to share some thoughts and get some perspective. So at this point in time, I'll turn the floor over to SunCloud. If you can, as you speak, can you just identify yourselves, and let's hear what you have to say.
Well, good evening. My name is Bridget O'Keefe. I'm an attorney at Daspin and Allment. I'm accompanied today by Melissa Rocky, who's the executive director of SunCloud Health, and Alex Chevalier, who's the medical director. We really appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk with you tonight. As the chairman said, this is a preliminary conversation. We wanted to come and present the proposed use, which would be a residential care facility at 5631 Manchester Drive. It would require a special use. We wanted to come in and just talk with you first, give you an overview of the proposed use, and see if you had any questions or concerns, and we just wanted to listen to what your thoughts were. So what I'd like to do is we have a PowerPoint tonight that would just kind of provides an overview of the use. It's going to be presented by Melissa and Dr. Chevalier. I'll be jumping in and out as need be. And then if there's any questions that we haven't answered, we'd be happy to talk to people and answer any questions you all might have. So thank you, and I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you, Bridget. Hi, like Bridget said, I'm Melissa Rocky. I am the executive director at SunCloud Health. I'm also a licensed clinical professional counselor and an art therapist. So I'm really excited to be here. I think the work that we do is amazing and life-saving and essential. If you can, so who is SunCloud? You can go to the next slide. We're a private treatment center with 5 locations actually throughout the Chicagoland area, and we just opened up one in Maryland. We're owned and operated by Dr. Kimberly Dennis, who's one of the nation's most renowned psychiatrists. I've had the privilege of working with Dr. Kim Dennis for about 20 years. We walked in, she was the staff psychiatrist and I was the art therapist, and it's been a wild ride ever since. We specialize in treating the whole person, and what that means is if any of us in this room have had ourselves, friends, families, kids, neighbors, loved ones, we know that it doesn't just show up in one way. You know, there's depression and there's sometimes anxiety. There's an eating disorder and there's sometimes OCD attached with it. So we really look at the co-occurring, which it's called in my world, the whole person and all the things that might be a challenge to them, whether that's academics, whether that's social circles, whether there's some health thing related to that and helping them get the proper care in that way, and as well as trauma. Unfortunately, as we all know in the world that we live in today, there's a lot of trauma that happens to people at all ages. So we really want to look at addressing that whole person so that we can help them heal and get on the next path. With that, it requires us to take an integrated approach at looking at all people. When we're looking at the whole person, both the symptoms, so maybe they can't do activities of daily living, they're struggling showering, or they're struggling to, you know, make meals for themselves because of their depression or anxiety, or leave the house because of trauma or you know, fear in that way. So we want to look at what the root of those problems are. We want to help look at those behaviors and get them back to, you know, their definition of a meaningful life. But we also are going to peel back those layers to see where some of those root causes came from. And we're committed to serving communities where we operate through collaboration and transparency. We currently have several locations in the Northbrook area, which we all know is really close to Highland Park. We were instrumental in providing some support. Myself, I volunteered my time at the Highland Park Hospital post the 4th of July shooting. We have worked with the Northbrook Police and Fire to provide trainings and debriefings around mental health. We're really excited when communities want to work with us because we're serving people in those communities. And the more that we can educate, the more that we can heal. So our locations, like I'd said, our kind of headquarters is in Northbrook. 2 of those residential treatment centers, which are for adults right now, are in Northbrook. We have one in Lincoln Park and then one in Naperville, and then I had mentioned our Maryland location. Go to the next slide. So SunCloud Health Gurnee, go ahead. So as you all know, this is the property. The reason we like this property, and I was real excited when I saw it, I believe used to be a nursing care facility, and it's intimate, it's small, it's all one level. It's a homey space, if you've ever been in there, I'm not sure. It's a really amazing opportunity for those kiddos and those adolescents that we're looking to serve to have a nice, safe, welcoming space. So I was stoked when we found it. You can go to the next one. So this center will be for kids. It'll be about 10 to 14 beds. Those ages are 13 to 18. The 18 depends on if they're still in high school and where they're at in that graduating. We have staff on site 24/7, including nurses, so that will be licensed therapists. Our peak staff number with only 10 to 14 beds might be 5 to 7, depending on that day, which will be licensed therapists, licensed nurses, psychiatrists, and as needed, like medical doctors, maybe an art therapist like myself, that will come in, including academic staff. So there'll be planned recreational activities that are always accompanied by staff, meaning we might go to the zoo or the botanical gardens, to give folks opportunities to be outside if they have that anxiety or that depression or things like that, which it'll also include the individual, group, and family counseling. And then because of it being the adolescents and the kiddos, we will have academic services provided by in-house staff teachers, providing education coordinated with their home school. The goal is to always get them back into their homes and into their home schools. So what we are not a detox, we're not transient, we're not a shelter, we're a halfway house, a methadone treatment, involuntary, or Medicare or Medicaid. We are a residential care facility for adolescents who are struggling with some of the challenges that I had mentioned earlier. Our average length of stay is probably about anywhere from 30 to 40 days. Our goal, like I said, is to get people back into their lives. I hope one day I have to find a new job. If we cure mental health, I'd be happy to figure out what came next. I don't know how happy my parents will be because I'd rather be an artist. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Alex over here is going to talk about our patients and our intake process.
Thanks. So my name again is Alex Chevalier. I am a physician and a child and adolescent psychiatrist specifically, and the adolescent medical director for SunCloud Health. I'm currently working out of the Northbrook location and hoping to work out of Gurnee in the not too distant future. So just to tell you a little bit about the target demographic that we're looking for, SunCloud works a lot different than some other mental health treatment facilities that you may or may not be familiar with. Many places are looking as a way to cast a wide net and bring in as many people as possible, partially because of the desire to service everyone and partially because that's what makes money. That is not the type of practice that we run, so we are really looking to have a very specific type of patient coming into our programs. We do a lot of work at the front door to make sure that we're getting people in, specifically adolescents in, that are going to benefit from our programs. So we are principally looking for adolescents who are ready to, put in the work and get better. Unfortunately, as a result of many mental illnesses, people are sometimes part of the way there. We can work with that and get you, more of the way there, but people who are not ready to get better and not ready to recover are not going to be good fits for our program. We're also really looking for people who want to join our community and work together on things. Our program, and in fact, just the patient I saw today was saying, what feels different compared to other facilities that he's been at, is just the community aspect of things, and that's a really fundamental part to what makes SunCloud SunCloud. It makes a big difference, particularly in the life of adolescents who often don't have the support and networks that they need, and the people that are around are not necessarily the greatest of influences on their lives. And so we are looking for kids that have those illnesses such that, they really need the help. They need to be out of the home. They need to be in a place that they can be, looked after and cared for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but can use that relatively short period of time, like we're talking to you about, in that 30 to 40 day range, to launch themselves to the point that they can get better, such that they can return home and continue on with their lives and with treatment. So in addition to kind of who we are and what we're looking for, if you go to the next slide. Yeah. We missed a few. Oh, sure. So why don't we let okay, sounds good. Yeah.
You can go to the next one. You're so eager to go. Yeah. Next one? Yes, please. So part of that, I know this is a little bit hard to read. I'm sure you guys have copies, so that you could see our program schedule and of how busy that they are throughout the day. Part of what we do and what is really important is we try to mimic a day in the life of. So you wake up, you go to school, you come home, maybe you have some free time, dinner, and then we have, a support group at night. The weekends are similar in the sense of keeping that routine, but we'll incorporate family visiting, maybe that going to that zoo or the botanical gardens and things like that to provide them the structure that they need, or the structure that they haven't had in that sense. So this gives you, and skills groups are like life skills, like coping skills. So if you're depressed, what are different skills you can use? The process group is where we might get into more of that underlying stuff, talking about trauma, whatnot like that. And then we have the expressive therapies, which could be art, dance, rec, things like that. You can go to the next slide. So safety is really, really important. That's a big part of my job there. So we contract with Elite Private Ambulance Service if someone needed to be transported to a different facility or a medical kind of thing that was going on, as long as it's not an actual emergency. Room checks are every 15 minutes on the evenings, and frequent grounds checks by staff, meaning staff have to have eyes on our kiddos every 15 or 30 minutes if it's like a free time, otherwise they're in a group or things like that. 911 would be utilized for an emergent or medical imminent risk. We had a patient that had an allergic reaction to some food. Our nurse was able to administer the EpiPen until we had to take them to the ER to be evaluated from there. So something like that. We're not a hospital or things like that. We have cameras in all common areas and hallways and entrance for safety. That's for our safety as much as it is for the community's safety. I want to know who's coming in and out of our buildings. All doors are coded doors and delayed egress, meaning if you ring the doorbell, you wouldn't, or if you came, you wouldn't be able to just walk in. You'd have to ring a doorbell, be screened, and any doors on the inside would be coded or delayed egress, meaning if doors were opened, I mean, you've seen it, if you push a alarm will sound kind of thing. So I want to know who's in and out of my building at all times for the safety of our kids. So I'll flip this back to Alex. I jumped around a little bit, I apologize. So Alex does a lot of our intake assessments, so I'll have him walk us through that.
It's always fun doing PowerPoints out of order. So just to tell you a little bit about what that assessment process looks like I said, we are really looking for specific patients. In our adolescent program, we do that in a very thorough way. So most of our assessments are actually done by board-certified child and adolescent psychiatrists. We're, the ones who really should be the kind of quarterback or overseer of an adolescent's mental health journey. And so if we've got the first eyes on somebody, we know how SunCloud works, we know what our programming looks like, we have a good idea whether or not somebody's going to be a good fit for what we do. Again, we turn away, far more patients than any other program that I've ever come across to in my career of doing this for the past 15 years. And so that's definitely something that, is front and center at the start of this thing. In addition to that initial assessment that's done, like I said, principally by the docs, and any ones that are not done specifically by a child and adolescent psychiatrist are then directly reviewed by myself, and then also Dr. Kim. So once we're through that initial assessment thing, and we're talking about getting people actually into our programming, there's certainly going to be some things that go into that. We do pretty thorough medical evaluations with full and expanded laboratory, blood serum testing. We'd be doing urine tox screens on our patients on regular and random intervals when they're with us. And then certainly when you're talking about our residential center, having people coming in and out, those are going to be people who are screened in any time they're coming in. Certainly, there's concerns with people bringing things in that shouldn't be coming in to these kind of very contained facilities that are designed to give high levels of structure. And so that's a big part of, keeping things safe for everybody involved as well. Patients are never anywhere without staff around, whether that's inside or outside of the facility. And again, for those of you who've been there, it's obviously a very small and intimate location where that's not going to be difficult to facilitate for us, thankfully. Obviously, despite all the work that we do trying to figure out, who's the best fits for us and bringing those kids in, there's going to be times when things do not go as we want them to. So we have a pretty robust lineup of things that we're doing in the event of teenagers who are not kind of fit in the mold and not having things work the way we want to, or if there's concerns with their behaviors. We will absolutely have patients that will, either need to leave home with their families and go back to where they reside, or be transferred directly, from our facility with private ambulance services to a different program that would be better able to support them. And then just a brief note, so there's obviously no cars for the residents for our adolescents there regarding the parking lots and things like that. So thank you for getting back to the exclusionary criteria. So in addition to what we're looking for, the things that we are not looking for amongst our patients are those who have, severe issues with self-injury. You may know it's very common these days to have some level of self-injurious behavior among adolescents who are struggling with mental health. The occasional cutting here and there is certainly something we would support, but kids who are not able to keep themselves safe on a regular basis, there's specific programs for them. That is not us, and we would, of course, make sure somebody got somewhere like that. Same thing with somebody who's struggling with active suicidal ideation. That's just not the kind of level of severity that we're going to be wanting to address and deal with. Those kids are usually on inpatient psychiatric units instead, and we'd help facilitate that if those come up as part of an assessment. We also do not do a lot of work with people who struggle with aggression. We call them like externalizing behaviors. That's a really needed treatment, to be honest with you, but it is not what we do. And so when we're talking about people who've put holes in walls and are throwing chairs and are getting into a lot of fights in school, those are not patients that we would be bringing in to do our work. And then those struggling with like really severe eating disorders, or they might be like purging after every meal or not able to eat throughout the the day, such that they need like IV fluids or close medical monitoring. Again, in a residential setting, not something that we're going to be doing. And then lastly, those who just can't be part of this recovery community where all the adolescents are coming together to not only help themselves, but be in service of others. The research is really overwhelming that one of the best ways to heal and get better is to be in service of others, and that's a really important part of our work. So for people who aren't going to fall into that bucket, they're going to be excluded. And then lastly, anybody who's doing stuff through the judicial system, anything that's like court ordered, that is not the kind of work that we do. So that wasn't on there, but should be on there. As I mentioned before, and as we talked about, this is not a transient thing. People aren't coming by for a couple of days, but it's also not like an extended stay facility. You may have heard of some of these programs for adolescents that go 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. That's absolutely not the kind of work we'd be doing, really targeting an average length of stay in that 30 to 40 day range. And of course, some of that depends on insurance companies, families, the patients themselves, how well treatment's going, but making sure that everybody's on the same page and making it be a instrumental and significant change in somebody's life, but also not keeping anybody in this kind of facility for longer than they need to be. We obviously want kids back home with their families. And then, just briefly, as I was mentioned in the past, there are going to be some times where we're not going to have successful completions of programs. That unfortunately is the case anywhere, us included. And because these are minors, it's not like they would just be saying, hey, see you guys, I'm doing voluntary treatment, I'm done, and walking out the front door. They would be assessed for safety, and then they'd only be discharged either to, the care of their family to be brought back home, or going directly by ambulance to another medical facility. So it's not the same as like an adult world where people can just leave against medical advice and kind of walk out the front door. I think we have one more. Yeah. You want to? It's fine.
So I know one of the questions that we were asked is what's the impact on the community? So there's no impact on the schools. Residents are schooled on site. Like I had mentioned, we have licensed teachers who will work with their home schools. No impact on the fire district. We contract with private ambulance company outside, I said, unless it is a medical emergency, which, no impact on taxing districts, and our hope is to be able to serve families and their children in the Gurnee area as much as possible. I think that might be the last slide. Thank you.
Good overview of the type of facility that this will be, and it's going to be a place of healing, and it's going to be a place where the patients are going to get a lot of individual attention, and with the goal of having them integrate back into a healthy environment and to a life where they can feel comfortable and good about themselves. So we're very excited about this, that we can offer this in Gurnee, and we are more than happy to answer any questions that we may have missed. And then I know that we have condo associations that are close to our site, and I don't know if any of you are here from those condo associations. So we did want to say, if there isn't anything that we've answered, or if you'd like us to come by and meet with you individually with your homeowners, we'd be happy to do that also, because we want to be transparent, and we want you to realize this is a small facility. This isn't going to be a large facility. It's going to be very personal, but it's very important that we be good members of the neighbors, good members of the community. And so we want to make sure that, our door is open if anyone has any questions. So that wraps it up.
Well, thank you. I'll start. One of the things that we have to consider is the impact on the immediately adjacent neighborhoods.
Sure.
And given the perspective, I want to couch it in perspective, given that historically that particular facility has ranged from being a Montessori school up to most recently a 24-hour-a-day residential care facility. Could you kind of compare and contrast for us, how the impact of your operation will be vis-a-vis those other uses?
Sure. We are, our current residential that we have for adults is adjacent to a community as well, a residential community. So similar questions have come up. What I can notice, besides some cars in the parking lot, we have awake overnight staff that, start, our nurses work 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So there'll be overnight cars in that lot. we don't go in and out at night. We don't take the patients or kiddos in and out. Once they're in, they're in. So from what I can tell is the biggest would be, there'll be more cars in the parking lot. If it was a Montessori school, they probably close, but similar to the nursing home or whatever it was, there might be an ambulance from time to time dropping off a kid or picking up a kid, which I guess would be no different than some of their probably senior citizens that were there. If we have someone stepping down from a hospital or things like that, but it's got that ambulance bay, which is nice as well, or not bay, but the parkway. Other than that, it's a relatively small facility, so I would imagine, 5 or 6 cars in the parking lot. You might see us coming in and out, but other than that, I don't see a big impact. Like I said, we have really limited visiting. It's really important to decide who's coming on site. Sometimes that will be even Zoom, depending on the family situation. So.
One thought is with Montessori school.
Ma'am, could you get closer to the microphone?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
have two. Here, why don't you stay there and I'll come over. One thought is with the Montessori school, you're going to have people coming and going with, drop-offs, pickups, more traffic. Because the residents aren't going to have cars, and because there's only 2 times when those limited staff members will come, there won't maybe be generating as much traffic. Shouldn't be noise generator.
No, I mean, we're not putting up any, we don't want to, lights a spotlight on it by any means. Maybe some giggling if, we're in the backyard planting some flowers. I mean, I can't see a big impact that would be much different than the Montessori school.
Some of those uses are nonprofit. We're going to be for-profit, so we'll pay property taxes, so that's slightly different. We did look at some of the ambulance calls in Northbrook, just to kind of give a frame of reference of how many times you might have an ambulance coming in or out on an emergency basis. And Northbrook's 42 beds, so it's 5 times as large as this is going to be, 4 times as large. And I think they had 7 calls a year for the last 2 years. So we don't have a lot of turnover. We don't have a lot of ambulances. So not a lot of no police calls, things like that.
One of those ambulance calls were on me. I'm allergic to bees. I got stung.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it did, thank you.
It is.
Yeah, Dave?
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation, thank you
Thank
very much. My question kind of revolves more around voluntary. This is a voluntary program, so that means that the family, the adolescent, parents, guardians are all invested in this process.
Correct.
Are volunteering, raising their hand, saying, yes, I will do this.
Correct.
They're human. They change their minds. They might change their mind at 2 o'clock in the morning in week 2. And what is to stop them from leaving under those circumstances
Sure.
at that random time?
Sure.
Because it's voluntary. They're not locked into their rooms, I'm assuming. They're not chained to anything. They can, I'm saying it's not prison.
No, it's a great
It's
question.
not involuntary. They weren't sent there by, a government body or anything
Correct.
like that. So how do you handle that kind of
Sure.
situation? It's not impossible to imagine that could happen.
Right. No, that's an absolutely great question, and that's something we're prepared for. So with that is, we do have the delayed egress, so you can't just run out a door. That is standard on residential treatment facilities. It's standard in our Northbrook. It's in line with fire code safety, things like that. So that is to just prevent them from running out in that sense. All of our staff are trained in crisis prevention intervention for that very reason. It's called CPI. It's a national program that is vetted by a lot of our accrediting bodies. So it's how to train, how to help de-escalate someone. It also trains you in the rare occasion you have to put like a physical hold on someone. And then there are medical interventions that our teams, if someone needs something we call a PRN or a medicine to help calm them down in those ways, those are offered. And an adolescent, by my clinical, ethical, and as our license, we can't just let them out. We can't just, so we will take all those interventions, or we would call a parent and have that discussion. I've, in my 20 years doing this, never had an adolescent picked up at 2 a.m. in the morning. I mean, I want to knock on all the wood in here in that sense. They very may want to. We very may have to work hard as a staff to intervene in all the different ways that our professionals are. But that is not something that I can even do under our licensing, is let an adolescent out at 2 a.m. in the morning.
I mean, they're minors.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Just had a couple of questions about food, because it's different than a school.
Right.
You might have to bring your lunch, and then supplies and deliveries, and then the last thing was if you can talk about the outdoor activities.
Sure.
For the residents.
Sure, so food, I don't know if you've ever been there. It does have a commercial kitchen on site. I mean, again, 10 to 14 patients isn't a lot, so we would be preparing meals on site. There might be an element of them preparing some of their own meals at different times, like that's the life skills, especially working with folks with eating disorders. So right now for our 42 beds, we have deliveries twice a month. It's, again, a similar kind of setting. There's that, I mean, there might be a grocery run here and there for something if we run out, but we don't require a ton. You know, there's cost savings in buying in bulk in different ways in that. And then the outdoor recreational activities, like I said, we want to take them out. We want them to do things. We want to expose. So there might be a time that we sit outside in the fenced-in area and maybe have a group around social skills, or, you know, as an art therapist, I'd love in certain weather to be outside to do an art project. But the outdoor recreational activities, we typically want to take them off-site to different places because that's part of the exposure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you go back to, I think it was your second and third slide, and it's visit our locations is the title of the slide. And can you please walk me through what transpires at each of these facilities?
So our headquarters, Outpatient Treatment Center at 40 Skokie Boulevard, that is our business office. So I have an office there. It's also outpatient treatment, which includes partial hospitalization, meaning that the patients, adult and adolescent, they program separately. We never program adults and adolescents together, just want to clarify that. Come for us for the day. They're there for about 5-6 hours, and then they go home at night. And then we also have intensive outpatient. They come for about 3 hours a day and then go home, and that might be in the morning, afternoon, post-school. So that location handles all that. The residential treatment centers, those two, that's similar to what we're asking for in this special use conversation. They actually live there. It's all adults. They live there for about 30 days to 45. It's a similar length of stay. They do everything with us for that time. They can't come and go, things like that. Again, that would be where we have the 24-hour staff. The interventional psychiatry suite, which is in the same suite as our residentials. It's like a business park, if that makes sense. I'm trying to explain it.
I drove through it, so I
Okay. So the interventional psychiatry suite, that is outpatient, so people come to us. There's something called transcranial magnetic stimulation. It's a machine that helps with hard depression, things like that. Our Clybourne Avenue, Chicago is very similar to our headquarters, so that is an adult and adolescent partial hospitalization and intensive outpatient. Our Naperville location is partial hospitalization and intensive outpatient for adults and adolescents. And then our Maryland location is intensive outpatient for just adults growing into the partial hospiitalization program.
So then this would be only your real second residential facility.
Third. So we opened up the building 300 about 2 years ago, and then we opened up 500 just about 6 months ago. So this will be our third.
We gave the name of the staff person we've worked with in Northbrook. We have a very good relationship with Northbrook since that's where we're headquartered and we have our residential treatment. So we have presented staff with the name and contact information for someone who we've worked with in Northbrook so that you could check us out.
And we had these similar conversations with that community as well.
Right, and the 3 and the 500 are in the business park, right?
Correct.
But they're up against residential, correct?
Correct. One side of it is all residential houses.
And the other side is the,
It's like a retaining,
Northbrook Court.
well, and then like a retaining pool thing.
yeah. It looks like a medical building complex, single.
But our building 300 is right next to the residential community, which they've been great to us, so we've been really fortunate.
And in those two, you have the 42 beds.
Correct. Each
divided
one is
between
21
those two.
beds.
Each one 21.
That's correct.
And the average length of stay is 40 days. How many, there are 42 beds, what's the average census that you have?
We're about 80% full, 80 to 85% full. And that's me just guessing off the top of my head when you say average.
Yes,
Especially because the 500 building, like I said, we just opened in the last 6 months.
right. And then, I'm sorry, between the 300 and the 500, that's all adult, right? So this-
Correct.
Would this be the first adolescent?
For SunCloud Health, yes, not for myself and Dr. Kim.
No, for the entity.
Yeah,
This
for
would be the
SunCloud,
first.
correct.
adult, okay.
For residential, we are treating them in partial hospitalization and intensive outpatient.
I was just curious, when you, on the operational structure, you said you screen guests that can visit. Go through the screening process for me, please.
Sure. So with adolescents in particularly, it's probably going to be limited to people that are 18 and older outside of siblings potentially, and immediate family. So if my high school buddy wants to come visit, no thank you. You guys can write letters, maybe talk on the phone if your parents permit that, because they get to screen and limit phone use in that way. So they're there to focus on something, and we want to eliminate those distractions. And we, right now at the adult residential facility, even if it's your spouse, your mom, you can't come visit until you have a family session first. That is us seeing the clinical picture. As much as mom, dad, or brother might be great, maybe there's some things that we notice in the family session that might not be, or maybe mom and dad are going through a divorce and that anxiety brings up the kid. So we want to see what's happening in that family session. Most family sessions happen virtually, just given the convenience. In that, we may do a few in person. So that would be the screening process in that sense to immediate family members and 18 and older, unless it's like a sibling or thing like that.
Yeah, I just had, the other ones were all answered. Is there any follow-up with they leave 40 days?
Absolutely. So we do have an alumni community that we invite them to be a part of. As Dr. Alex said, giving back to the community is huge. So our alumni give back to our community. So there's follow-up if they want to be a part of that. And then we do standard outcomes, which is 30 days, 6 months, and a year.
Just to add real quick, because I think we may have lost this in translation, the overwhelming majority of adolescents who finish at residential are going to step down to the partial hospital,
Yeah,
PHP
they're
level
gonna
of
stay in our
care,
care.
and most of those are going to be staying with us. So they'd be coming to our Northbrook location, our Chicago location, our Naperville location, and going on to do the program for 6 hours a day instead of 24 hours a day. They graduate 6 hours a day, then they come 3 hours a day. So it's a gradual transition down. So it is not like a do the super intense thing and then just plop your back at home, which would be a great question. It's a very gradual, movement, and that's really how the field has gone to shift levels of care treatment. So you're almost always going from, one level down each time you go. So that's a gradual and smooth thing because, as you can imagine, people who go from a whole bunch of care to almost nothing do not do very well.
The way I tell families around that, it's like you went and had heart surgery. Sometimes you have to go to the cardiac floor for a few days. Then you might go to a rehab, and then you might do outpatient, like physical therapy. It's very similar, just in the mental health side.
So how long is
It could be 4 months, depending on the clinical progress. And it's a slow titration, right? Like we want to do this in a gentle, loving way, not just like, here's 24/7 support. Good luck. Like the outcomes have shown us that doesn't work. And then we have school liaisons that work very closely with the schools, and so they might start in our partial program after residential, then they might go to our IOP, but then they might have a 1 or 2 day a week, I'm gonna go back to school, and then come to us. We work really creatively with the families, the schools, the communities, to do what's best for that kid. We want, like I said, if I have to find another career, fine.
Dane?
I just had two quick questions. So, I'm sorry, it's not, but it was the overview of service. So we have ages 13 to 18, but and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought you said the qualifier for 18 was that the child, adolescent, is still in high school? Is that a qualifier? So if they're 18 and not in high school, they're not qualified to be in a program. They'll go to another one of your treatment facilities.
Most likely, yes. We've had some 18-year-olds, like say they just graduated, but their peer group is still they've graduated high school, but they haven't like gone to college yet. So part of the evaluation that our MDs do is look at that 18-year-old to see where they would belong. But if they're still in high school, they're gonna go to our adolescent.
Okay.
If they're just turned 18 and their social group and things like that are different, we look at that to see what would be best for them on that side. But it's really that high school cutoff that is a clear indicator of where they should go.
Okay, and then the staffing model, it was 5 to 7 each day.
That'd be our peak.
That would be your peak. So it's not 24 hours a day, 5 to 7?
No.
Okay, so then what is it like?
Our staffing ratio is 6 to 1.
6 to 1, okay.
So we'd have two awake staff overnight.
2 awake staff overnight?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me get Liliana first.
Okay,
She's-
go ahead.
Liliana, did you have anything?
Just when do you expect to start it, or when is your plan to?
To start it?
Yes. Mhm.
Well, depending on this process, then we have to go through a pretty rigorous licensing process through the state of Illinois, and then a joint commission, which is a regulatory body that every medical or mental health facility in the United States either has joint commission or CARF. It's one or the other. Illinois is highly joint commission. So it could take several months to get through all of those licensing accreditation processes. It's hard to tell depending on what their backlog is, but I need to go through all of those prior to opening my doors.
Okay.
Just curiosity, okay, that's loud. What is the rate where, say, a patient is residential, goes out to your outpatient, and then has to come back to residential? Because do you have a statistic to that, or?
I don't have that statistic because we have not treated adolescents in the residential standpoint, so we haven't been tracking that data. But to say that it's never going to happen, I would never say that. I'm grateful when they come back because that's where they're able to get more help in that sense. But unfortunately, we haven't had that population and those levels of care, so I haven't been able to track it. And there's not national data on that. I wish there was.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to direct my next question to members, to the residents. Couching it that this is an informal discussion and no action's going to be happening tonight. Is there anything that we've missed that you'd be interested in knowing?
I think your program, the work that you do, is invaluable in any community. I live directly behind the facility. I have a view of it from my deck. I'm within feet of it. Okay? So while I respect it and, am in awe of people that can do this every day, that's great. I find it challenging that where I live, I never thought that I would hear descriptions of a property so close to my home being noted as, you know, we have frequent ground checks for the safety of our kids, your kids, or you have regular drug and lab testing for the folks that will be there, however long or short the duration may be. I have a concern for the safety of me, my husband, my neighbors. We're not adolescents. Many of us are older. We're usually considered in the vulnerable part of the community. So when you say that your locations are adjacent to residential, I'm familiar with the Clybourne corridor, know it well. I don't think the folks that live on Bissell or Sheffield or whatever would really wish to have that particular facility right near their homes. Where it's located is great. You also have an intercom system, a buzzer system. There's safety in place. You're on a busy street. You're on Clybourne. I go to Northbrook. You're off of 41 and Lake Cook Road. You're also not surrounded, to my knowledge, by residential. If I move further to the west, where your residential center is, treatment center is, I can see that, I know you're saying it's adjacent to residential, but I don't see it. Your suite is, again, you've got the retaining area, you've got a parking lot that's connected to Northbrook Court, you're in a professional complex there, you're basically in a medical type facility area. I don't see that any of the residences that you may be near are within view of your back area, where the fence is not that large. So there is a question of how our area would be a fit for what you do and what you provide for the community, which again is great, but at what cost to those of us who thought we were just living in a neighborhood with homes, normal facilities that, you know, service those homes, whether it be a church or whatever. So again, keywords, red flags to me when you're talking about grounds checks, things like that. Makes me nervous, makes me a little unsure that that's where I would like you to be located, right? I mean, I don't quite understand how these folks here are going to feel comfortable on a day-to-day with any potential problems. And I realize what you're doing is great, but if we're talking about alcohol issues, these are all the things from your website. Alcohol treatment, depression treatment, drug treatment, eating disorder, process addiction, PTSD. I don't know that anybody can guarantee anything for my safety. If there are any issues with any of these folks outside of your facility, and anyone deciding to take a walk somewhere or see what's in the area, and what they'll see is my backyard or my neighbor who just happens to be 100 years old. I kind of fear for his safety and his general welfare and being. I don't want him to have any issues because his home is right there and there's your facility. Somebody can walk over there. You've got something right across the street with Cowell Creek, more homes that are right there.
Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to
Yes.
to cut it short, please. I think we understand your concern is about safety, and I just want to remind you this is an informal discussion, and
Okay.
And the safety concern is well noted.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's a big concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Who's talking? Okay. Yeah, I'm always willing for people to say something. I just need to know who it is.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And I just wanted to say I understand your concern, and we really appreciate your expressing it. You know, we did bring a lot of these things up where I could see, you know, I think it's because when we don't bring them up, people ask. And so we felt it was important to try to think of all the questions you might have because we've been asked them before. it doesn't mean that these processes or people who are going to be outside are going to interfere with your daily life. The whole goal is not for that to happen, but we felt it was better to give more information than less. So it wasn't meant to inspire concerns. We're trying to say, we got a really strong program, and the goal is so that people living here are going to get the care they need. And
Ma'am, could you come up to the microphone, please?
you have to talk in the microphone.
2 a.m. breakout, and they run to the backyard, and that's where our 100-year-old neighbor lives. That's, I mean, we're talking feet, okay? They jump the fence, they're in his yard. They're desperate. It's just that close. You know, the fence is like here, and his back door is not even the wall there. That's really close.
Okay.
And there's a border of at least maybe 4 or 5 units on the back line there that would be very vulnerable. That's the biggest issue, not what you do there. I totally support that. It's just the safety of the people in the backyard. Not across the street, not down the street, the backyard.
Okay, thank you.
Could I get your name and address just for our minutes? And thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And yes, please. And your address?
731 Chelsea Court.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm very thankful that I must lead a very sheltered life and don't have any immediate family members that have had to deal with stuff like this. And I'm very glad that there's organizations out there like yours that are equipped to help people cope with that kind of stuff. I think the safety concern is a valid one. But based on the comments that I'm hearing from members of the Planning and Zoning Board, I don't think we're throwing a wet blanket on it. So I encourage you to continue to work with staff, kind of fine tune the safety concerns and see what the appropriate next steps are.
For licensing, is there any, for criminal activity, would any of the potential residents have any connections to prior criminal activities?
That's exclusionary criteria. No.
I didn't hear Tom.
Yeah, you made a statement earlier that you would do presentations for the different communities. I would strongly encourage you to contact the community managers for the different associations that are surrounding the area, and in turn make a presentation to them if they want to at their regular board meetings.
Ma'am, could you come back up to the microphone? Can you come back up to the microphone?
Reached out to 2 of the 3 associations. 2 have gotten back to us, so we're happy to do that. And then we are working with...
We're actually working with Warren County Youth and Family Services already. Some in-services and doing some higher level education for their staff. From
Gurney.
Gurney High School.
Most definitely,
And if anybody in your organizations or in your life that need that, that's, again, something we're happy to do. That's how change happens and healing happens.
my subdivision is the Heather Ridge subdivision, which is right behind there. So,
Yeah.
that's why I said contact the community managers and see if they can, if need be, meet at the regular board meetings or have a special session or something.
Absolutely. We'd love that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? No, okay. Next meeting on the calendar is scheduled for August 16th, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have one because staff has put out a notice for some text amendment reviews.
And a second
Another
public hearing.
informal,
Right.
okay? But the text amendment reviews is a public hearing, so.
We actually have another public hearing, too.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yep.
good, okay. So see you in 2 weeks. I'll open the floor to public comment for anything that was not on the agenda this evening. Close the floor to public comment. Motion to adjourn would be in order. Motion by Mr. Pasak.
Second.
Second by, half got in there first. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.